Hello and welcome back to High Fever, your Indiana Fever basketball podcast. Today, Connecticut Sun 92, Indiana Fever 71. Caitlin Clark in her very first regular season game as an Indiana Fever member. She plays 32 minutes, has 20 points, 0 rebounds, and 3 assists. Your starters were Katie Lou Samuelson, Alyssa Smith, Aaliyah Boston, Erica Wheeler, and of course, rookie, first overall pick, Caitlin Clark. For the Sun, you had DeWanna Bonner, Alyssa Thomas, Brianna Jones, Ty Harris, and DeJounte Carrington. Carrington was all over Caitlin Clark. Look, it was not good for a lot of the game. A lot of Caitlin Clark's 20 points came pretty late. She was 4 of 11 from 3. I thought that they would maybe tell her to cool it on the threes. But nope, she took 11 threes, and a lot of them were kind of not close. She had a lot of trouble getting her open looks, a lot of trouble getting to the rim. Some passes were good. Most of them were forced. Like we've talked about this before, how she kept forcing passes that I felt didn't need to be forced in a lot of situations. And rather than stop that and maybe, pass out to Erica Wheeler or even Boston or Alyssa Smith, who was sometimes up with her, she just tried it, and a lot of them just didn't work. And it got to the point where the game got out of hand pretty quickly because she just it again came back to last season where the game gets out of reach, and then they kind of just stop. Caitlin Clark got into foul trouble early, and they put her on the bench, and she was pouting and had her head down. She would make a bad shot or a bad pass, and she was not very, let's say, encouraging. It was definitely a downer vibe for most of the game. She kind of got it going at the end, was able to put up a team-high 20, but you're not going to beat a team like the Sun playing like this. It wasn't as good for her co-stars either. Alyssa Smith was kind of doing okay. Aaliyah Boston missed some in the post that she normally makes. It just kind of got away from the Fever, and they could never really. They got it in the third quarter. It was close. They pulled it back in within. It was definitely under 10, and they just couldn't ever get it back. And it was disappointing. It was a disappointing showing. I think everybody was disappointed in the way that they kind of came out this game. And I didn't really appreciate that they really let her kind of keep shooting and playing the way that she was playing. I feel like there could have been a halftime pep talk where they were like, okay, let's maybe pull it back, focus on the passing a little bit more. But she kind of kept, and they were trying their best to they were trying high screens, low screens, anything to get her any space. But it's pretty clear what is going to happen for these first couple of games. And honestly, there's only 40 games a season. So guess what's going to happen the entire season is that every team's best defender wants Caitlin Clark. And that's what happened today. Carrington was all over her. Hard fouls. Nothing came easy to Caitlin Clark. And that's how it's going to be the remainder of the season. There's not going to be one team who's going to let her feel comfortable or let her get into a rhythm. It's going to be difficult, and that's exactly what it was today. The crowd was honestly more Fever fans than I expected, but still, they were all about it, and Caitlin took some bumps where she ends up on the ground, and as a Fever fan, it looked a little bit meaning I hope she gets up and is okay, because she took some hard falls. And we saw this in the preseason, but man, it's scary when she ends up on her back. It's not good. She needs to figure out a way to create her own stuff without, running into the defender. But that's just how it's going to be all season and honestly all career, because there's a mania, there's a Caitlin Clark mania, and teams know about it, and their best defenders want their shot and want to welcome her to the league. And the main thing that I think I'm just so disappointed in is we lost by 21 again. This feels like last year's team. This feels like the team that was quitting halfway through. This feels like the team that had one superstar, and if everything didn't go right for her, it was over for the rest of the team. And I didn't see that in the preseason. I was so encouraged by what I saw. And again, the Sun are a great team, and they're playing with Caitlin Clark, who was the first overall pick and is just a rookie. This is literally her third game. Keep in mind, Caitlin Clark didn't even have like a summer break. She took 6 weeks maybe off of basketball and then was immediately back to the court. I don't want to overreact too much. It just sucks because you're getting these flashbacks. You're getting these reminders of last season in this game, and it's unfortunate. And it's another road game, first game of the season on the road, and they come home and they play the Liberty, which is not an easy team, and then the next game is a Liberty again. So you're playing a top 4 team in 3 of your first 4 games, and then you play the Sun again, which is like, the schedule makers maybe hate the Fever. Do they get 1 win? Do they get 2? I mean, what are we even doing here? This team is just figuring each other out. I feel like some of the vets maybe need to step up a little more, and I understand that the coaching staff is also sort of new, and they're kind of getting used to these new players, but there has to be a conversation where Caitlin Clark, when ESPN does their whole coverage of Caitlin Clark, she can't be on the bench pouting because she's got 2 fouls and they had to take her out of the game in the first quarter. It's like, you can't have this kind of attitude when there's so much spotlight on you and everything that you do is going to be criticized. And look, I understand that she knows this, and I'm just somebody who's talking about her on the internet, but there needs to be a little bit of urgency. There needs to be some sort of fix for this, and maybe they figure it out the next game, and maybe it takes them 20 games to figure this out. But this was not the world breaking debut. Of course it broke all the records. This was the most watched women's basketball game ever on ESPN on their platforms. Yes, of course it's a big event. I'm not saying that it's not, but as for a Fever fan and a Fever fan who's been watching long enough to recognize when a team is over it, they were definitely over it. It just didn't look as sharp. It didn't look as clean as you might have wanted. This could have been a close game. There were moments where I felt like if maybe Caitlin Clark made a better decision, they would have potentially got it down to 4, maybe, tied it. It just got out of hand so quickly. And I think, unfortunately, part of that is due to the coaching staff being unable or unwilling to tell Caitlin Clark that it's maybe time to pull the reins back a little bit. The second unit wasn't very helpful either. I like the way Grace Berger was playing. She was playing with a lot of heart. Kelsey Mitchell, of course, is going to go out there. But your supporting cast, Aaliyah Boston can't have 4 points. Erica Wheeler can't have 8 points. Katie Lou Samuelson, took 2 threes. So is maybe some of those shots that were going to Caitlin going to go to the surrounding cast? I certainly hope so. There needs to be some work done with the way that the shot distribution is going, because it's very clear that Caitlin is uncomfortable as of right now, as she should be. She's a rookie and everybody's going to target her. So let's try and figure out ways that we can incorporate plays where the supporting cast also can help her out, because this is the Caitlin Clark show, but she's on the Indiana Fever, and the team as a whole just needs to be better. But like I said, we are back at home taking on the Liberty. Let's see how this one goes.